Welcome back.
Welcome back to DevelopLex. What a setting we have today. If you are listening to this via Spotify or Apple, I highly encourage you to tune in via YouTube. Just so we get more clicks, if you can continue listening to this on Spotify, but maybe also open your YouTube browser and type in DevelopLex podcast. We put a lot of effort into this production. So if you would, give us a watch on YouTube.
Yeah, so I think we have some explaining to do. We are at Todd's Road, just past I-75. So if you go from Man of War, past the Andovers, past I-75, Crossroads Christian's on your right, Polo Club's on your left. And we are at the corner of where the urban service boundary is right now. We're sitting across from part of the land that is not going to be in the urban service boundary. And we're sitting to the right of some proposed land for the next area. And so this is really interesting. The expansion area.
Dun,
yes.
dun, dun.
And I would like to just say as a disclaimer, the line is not Lexington's problem. But just so you all have a visual of what it is, check it out. There's an interesting setting that we're sitting in today.
Yeah. And the other disclaimer, maybe we continue doing podcasts at different parts, but this is not the only expansion area of Lexington. So there are several expansion areas. We could probably drop the map in our show notes just so people can be educated on where we're at, but also where all the other locations are. So maybe check out the next YouTube and see where we're recording next. So this episode is going to be what we would call the DevelopLex Roundtable. Really like to have these every now and then to recap what's going on in the season, what's going on in life, all of the things. Give us the opportunity to just decompress after the season in the most positive way. But also just talk about things that are relevant in the city. Pardon any background noise. There are literally cars just whizzing by every now and then. So anyway, we wrote down a few topics to talk about. First one, I would like to recap some of the episodes and what some of the favorite points or quotes or conversations have been thus far. And I'll let you take it away, Ross.
I've really enjoyed Griff Van Meter's episode about the Yes for Parks, what the North Lime corridor used to be, what it is now, and how he's played a part in it. For me, I grew up thinking that getting to go to the night market and meet a girl there was the coolest thing. I was so cool because I got to do that. I also got to be on a board, a nonprofit board, with one that Griff really supported, lent us office space to have board meetings into, got to put an urban farm behind one of the properties that he was part in. And that was a really cool thing. And so I really enjoyed that episode. I've also enjoyed the one that we had at Eppings with the Chads. That was fun just to get to spend time with them again. And we are really pumped for one that's coming up that you'll have to stay tuned for.
Yeah. I'll throw the question back to myself. There's a few, we had a few kind of unique episodes. One of them was the Mitch Barnhart episode. Mitch, I really hadn't spent much time with. Super down-to-earth guy, sitting in the recruiting room, right? The recruiting room, that was what that was called. I felt like somebody was going to kick me out at any minute. I just didn't think I belonged there. The facilities that, we just got a thumbs up from some guy. The facilities that the university has put together for the football team are unreal. It's cool to see the investment that we've made. And I think that I just kept noticing themes throughout that episode that UK is really dealing with a lot of the same, like it's pretty reflective of a lot of the same issues that Lexington is dealing with in terms of growth, of just having to be creative to figure out growth while growth is needed.
Well, an interesting thing, an urban design principle, is that those new things of walkability or co-living or name any of the things that are trends in the urban design world usually happen first in university campuses and then university towns, and then they spread out. To be able to have a university that has the ability to build, whether through bonding capacity or through just their general fund or whatever it is a really cool way to have a miniature experiment of a city. And they do a really good job at it. Look how much more walkable it is. If you remember, Rose Street used to connect all the way from Main Street up through Sorority Row, past Kim Fizz, into the medical center, and go out to Nicholasville Road. And it was a big deal when that got shut down. It first got turned into a cul-de-sac, and then Alumni Commons got turned into a pedestrian-only road. And that's something that the repedestrianization, if that's even a word, is a big trend of the 2000s. And you're seeing it first on college campuses. And you're also starting to see some cities turn streets that were underutilized or inconvenient into boardwalks that are pedestrian only, that host markets or are just becoming a new town center.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like we've been seeing that more frequently with events downtown. I feel like Road Street gets shut down every other week for some sort of event going
More
down.
life happens when streets are shut down. Don't be hating on the traffic.
Oh, I love it. I don't. Yeah,
You love the traffic.
I love traffic. I love walkability. So Mitch was a really interesting episode. I'm trying to timestamp when our last roundtable was. I don't know if we talked post BHG, Bruce and Brian, but their episode was pretty amazing in what they've built from the city of Lexington. I think that they really hit a lot of entrepreneurial tones in the episode, which kind of got my juices flowing on what ideas you can take out of Lexington and go to other places. What was interesting with theirs was there was obviously a real estate component to it, but they were so big on building a culture and building that culture from Malibu Drive that I thought was really neat. I think that they both just do a really tremendous job of investing in the city of Lexington, not just through BHG, but with their personal time. I was joking during the episode that it was like right post Mark Pope getting hired, and they were seen hanging out with Mark Pope after. So that for how successful they are and how successful that brand is and how much it invests in the university and in our town, I felt like they were both two incredibly humble guys on and off the mic, which was really neat. And I just really enjoyed spending time with them and getting to kind of understand how their brains work. Because that, like, it is really neat to go to a different town like a Chattanooga or Johnson City or somewhere like that and see a Lexington flag in Malone's or Drake's or one of those concepts. I think that it takes the hospitality of Lexington and recreates it. They talked about this theme in the episode of, I think it was Kansas City or Indianapolis, I don't remember, of they tried to essentially do one of those restaurant concepts somewhere else and hire management from that place, not move one of their internal management folks there. And it didn't work. It just didn't go well. And so they talked about how that was just a mistake and they learned from the mistake, but it really does go to show that culture and bringing culture other places makes a huge difference.
And that's a really neat thing that I've been able to see. So episode dropped on a Thursday. I think that next Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday, they opened up the Chattanooga location. And so when I was driving down to Atlanta for the week, stopped in on a Monday night, and I saw somebody there that used to work at the Palomar location in management. And you could really see a Lexington fingerprint on Chattanooga. And it was really neat. They're doing an awesome job.
Yeah, and you can take the same principles. I think maybe relaying this into Jim Gray's episode, you can take the same principles and apply it to other cities. You don't have to be, I think the word was visionary. Am I
Yep,
correct in that?
The bad word.
the bad word. And I think he highlighted the fact that he was good when he was a mayor and he was a leader within the city of taking concepts from other places and applying them to our city. And I think that theme is the same thing as BHG, of they were able to take a really good concept and apply it other places.
Yeah. So what do you miss about, I was talking with somebody today. I said, what do you miss about Lexington right now? As we've grown, some people don't like change because change gets rid of their favorite restaurant, or things naturally change and it's a different environment. What's something you miss that either you grew up with in Lexington that's not here anymore, or it's just different?
I hate calling it Kroger Field.
I do too.
Maybe we'll change it to Publix Field once Publix comes here. I still call it Commonwealth Stadium. That's a great question. I think that actually I want you to answer it because I don't have an answer yet.
I miss Billy's barbecue.
Not a hot chicken guy.
Not really. Billy's barbecue. It was just for you all that don't know about Billy's barbecue. It's where Joella's Chicken is now, and it was the best pulled pork in town, and it was amazing.
Man, place I miss. If I had to pick a place, I mean, I could be reminiscent about nostalgia. I'm a nostalgia guy. I talked about that in the Griff episode a little bit. A place I really miss in Lexington, which is now Critchfield, so I do love Critchfields, is Sloan's.
Sloan's Market.
I have a lot of good nostalgic memories from riding my bike to Southland Pool and then going and getting a Jones soda at Sloan's on my way home.
You're such a cool kid.
I don't know if my mom knew that I rode my bike all the way to Southland Pool from our house, but whatever I was. But yeah, that's one concept that I really miss about Lexington. SVN Stone Commercial Real Estate is a full-service commercial real estate firm located in Lexington, Kentucky. Affiliated with the SVN International Network, SVN has over 200 offices across the globe. The SVN Stone team consists of experienced commercial real estate advisors in the heart of the Bluegrass. SVN helps their clients with commercial property sales, leasing, investments, and property management. Let SVN help you with your commercial real estate needs. Check us out at svnstone.com.
That was an interesting point. Sloan's Market, if you don't know, was a local, maybe even regional, I think it was local market that is something that was where the Save-A-Lot is on Southland Drive, where the Fresh Market is on Tate's Creek. Was there another one? It was a good, end of the 2000s era kind of place. But what's really interesting is that when we're all developing, everybody's always saying we want a market, we want a grocery, but we do not want a food market. One of those things you will see in a bigger city that's practically a gas station that just has a little allotment. And we had a really cool mix of Sloan's and then Shorty's, which was an urban grocery, and then Lucky's Market, which was really ahead of its time. You could drink a beer and walk around and get artisan food, craft beer, and organic food at a good price.
Yeah, beer and pizza, right? Didn't they have
beer
a
and
beer
pizza.
and pizza deal? That was right after I turned 21, so I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
And it was really close to campus. It was right on the other side of the railroad tracks by Virginia. And it was just way ahead of its time. And now we find that people are begging for a grocery, but then we have these big box groceries that do so well, and they do really good at what they're good at, so that the mom and pop can't really infiltrate.
Yeah, you see that I'm really curious as to what's going to happen once Publix opens on here, or really the influx of Publix that are going to open in Lexington, supposedly. Now there are two coming out of the ground. But I am curious, Southland Drive, for example, or in that general area, there's Kroger, there's Good Foods Co-op, and the supermarket. I don't know how to say it, but there's a Mexican grocery store right next to Dollar General as well. So there are 3 grocery stores, all within a very, very short span. 2 of those are locally owned. One of them's a cooperative, so it's very locally owned. It's owned by its members. But I'm really curious what happens when a store like Publix comes in and sees the sales that they can get. What actually ends up happening to that real estate?
I have a hot take. I don't think that Publix is coming for Kroger. I think they're coming for Meijer.
Do tell. Because they bought the land from Meijer?
No, well, that's an interesting. That's a canary in the coal mine. I just don't think that Meijer has the same market dominance or loyalty that Kroger or Walmart have, and I think Meijer just has not kept up. And people just are not ready for these pub subs. Like the pub subs are about to rock the city. It's
the public stands are public stands. I like Publix. I always, when I go to anywhere in the South, I'm always a Publix guy.
That was the most slick way of saying I'm bougie. I'm better than Kroger, so I go to Publix. I pay that extra 30 cents on every single item.
Well, I do it twice a year when I go to Florida and Alabama. But yeah, I mean, I might be a Publix guy. It's like fairly close to my house. The new one will be. I guess I don't know when that's actually ever going to open, but it seems to be fine. Every 6 a.m. workout I go to out at the fountains, there are people there that beat me there that are working on that grocery. So I'm assuming it's going to happen quick.
What do you think was ahead of its time in Lexington?
Ahead of its time. Lucky's was a really good answer that I would like to steal. I feel like a lot of the first gen tenants at the summit could be considered ahead of their time. I don't think that people were quite ready for the summit. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. I don't know. That first generation tenant lineup, I think demanded more support from the city of Lexington than we initially gave it.
The people of Lexington.
The people of Lexington. Yep, not the actual city, but the people of Lexington. I'm guilty of that. But we lost a lot of really good tenants in that first mix. There was that Mexican restaurant that would make guacamole at your table. That was ahead of its time. But I do think that the summit in general did not have, obviously, the barn project. A lot of those things were knocked out by COVID. Retail just kind of got smoked by COVID. But there were some concepts out there that I would consider ahead of their time.
Interesting. Very interesting. It's fascinating that as developers we'll put together a tenant mix that says this is what it's supposed to be. It's a gesture to have local people like what was in the barn with corporate luxury brands, with a new to market concept or a fairly young brand kind of thing. And in your entire pre-development period, you're thinking about what that most beautiful tenant mix is. And oftentimes is not it. But it's a piece of art before the marketplace can really say, well, okay, I have a 2,000 square foot box. This is who's in the market looking right now. And then you just kind of have to, you have to get the jigsaw out to make the jigsaw puzzle work sometimes once it's already built, versus when you can be working with tenants in that first gen mix, you can do some really cool things.
Yeah. That takes us to, I would say we talked about groceries. We talked about some of the things that came to Lexington didn't last. A topic that we wrote down for today is third spots. We've talked about this in a couple of different episodes. Can you explain what you would consider to be third spots, and then let's name off a couple?
Yeah. A third spot is you have where you go home to as your first, where you go to work to as your second. And then your third spot is imagine like Cheers. It's that bar where everybody knows your name. It's that place that everybody goes and hangs out. And there's a cultural component to it that if you're not home, you're not at work, where are you going to be? So Weston, if you go missing, where are you going to end up? And that's what a third spot is. For me, I love some of these public spaces. The Yes for Parks is just an extension of that. I think Thursday Night Live is in some ways my third spot, even though I don't get to go to it anymore. Not because I'm banned, I'm not here on Thursday nights anymore. I wonder if there's people that have been banned from Thursday Night Live.
100%. I don't know how you enforce it, but we could probably get to the bottom of that.
But I think there's also a really cool crowd of people that you go to Chevy Chase Inn, and in the back room, there's folks that get together every Friday night. And that's really neat. And I think that as developers, we also have to think about what can be a tenant that's profitable, but also creates that third spot. And that can be a gym. You see Lifetime Fitness wanting to go by Lifetime now instead of Lifetime Fitness because they're putting a co-working space together. It's supposed to be a club, similar to a country club where you'll go there and you could be working out next to somebody and then find out that your dinner reservation is next to them the next day, and then your kids are on the swim team the day after that. And a country club is just a place of a physical place that gives sense of place. And I think there's also this new trend in the 2020s forward where there's city clubs. City clubs are making a comeback. We have one that's getting built pretty much across from the Opera House right now. We've always had one over off of Main Street by the Kentucky Theater. And it's places where people can kind of let their guard down and just feel safe. Craftsmen Contractors is Central Kentucky's one-stop shop for roofing, windows, siding, and gutters. CraftsmenContractors.com/contact us will get you straight to the form you need so that their team will get in touch about your project. Or just text Steven at 859-246-0108. When they finish your project of windows, siding, gutters, or roofing, you'll see what they mean when they say, "We build with integrity." Where do you think your third spot is?
No free ads, but Gordy Hogan, I'll give you one. I've recently joined the Sand Trap, which is a cool indoor golf simulator, little hangout spot. They have 3 TrackMen, a putting green, a bunch of TVs, a cooler, and it's a membership that you can go anytime from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. But I think that and hit golf balls. I guess you could just hang out if you wanted to, but hit golf balls. But the cool thing is it kind of feels like a spot that you're almost a little bit hoping to run into somebody. You could go in there and just grind and hit golf balls, but you also could see somebody you hadn't seen in a while and reconnect if you wanted to. The other, I think, this is actually not hidden, a gem of Lexington is Kentucky Native Cafe. There are so many people doing so many different things there if you go at 4 p.m. on a Thursday or on a Friday or whatever. There's people that are studying for midterms. There are people that have their kids and are having an adult beverage and hanging out with their other adult friends. There are groups meeting. There are people just working while they're there. And I think that everybody wants to generally be around people, but they don't necessarily have to be doing the same thing. If you're at a bar, you're not taking your flashcards to study for midterms. But if you're at maybe McCarthy's. But if you're at Kentucky Native, I think that people just want to be around other folks, similar to a coffee shop. It's kind of like a little bit of a co-working space sometimes. But you also get to enjoy the beauty of the outside. And you also get to, like, I don't know, it's kind of refreshing when you go there with friends and you get to see little kids running and playing in the sand or whatever. So that would be like my favorite third spot in Lexington's Kentucky Native.
I'd like to say Weston is a true sportsman. So when we loaded up all the stuff to come out here, he's got a fishing net, pickleball paddles, golf clubs, Probably a lacrosse stick in there.
I do have a lacrosse stick from when I was coach like 3 years ago still.
My
Running shoes.
decathlon coming soon.
Yeah. I've got my I guess one of these shots you can see my Subaru in. I've got my back seats down. I have a string trimmer as well for doing my yard work. I was gonna let somebody borrow that, but anyhow.
Okay, perfect day. What are you gonna do? And walk us through how you also see real estate in real life.
The background of the question was perfect day in Lexington. I'm gonna call it in October, but we are not allowed to do the trifecta. That was my one disclaimer because that's such a cop out. To explain what this trifecta is.
The trifecta is the real perfect day in Lexington. So,
Not allowed. But you can explain it.
So you go to Keeneland, and you get some bread pudding, and then you go to UK football game, and then the next day you go to Big Blue Madness.
Not allowed to do it though. So rule that out, and I'm suggesting a perfect day for somebody else. My perfect day in Lexington is work out when I wake up. I'm an early riser at Orange Theory Fitness, and then my wife and I will go to High and Art and Coffee. That's our every Saturday morning routine. If you ever want to catch me on a Saturday morning, catch me at High and Art and Coffee. I need a little protein. I need a little sweet treat of some sort, some little bougie latte that kind of tastes like a milkshake, but it's actually coffee. After that, I would let's set like fullness aside. I would probably go to like Winchell's to watch some sort of college football game around midday. I would then go on a walk at the Arboretum. In this perfect day, it's like 58 degrees outside, so heat is not a factor at 3 p.m. I may end up for dinner, I'm going to end up at somewhere like Drake's. I like the vibe of sitting outdoor at Drake's, and then I'm going to end up at Merrick Inn for a drink to finish the night, sitting at the bar, watching hopefully Kentucky beat like Florida or something. And then I go to bed.
So I'm going to then dissect his perfect day. So he started at the Fountains. Fountains is a 2020 vintage shopping center designed on what used to be a church that was positioned at that corner. So think about a redevelopment there. Goes to Higher Art and Coffee. That's another thing that used to be a residential house in the urban core that's now been converted into a really neat retail restaurant concept. Very walkable, right next to a park, right next to other in the Woodland Triangle, which is a really cool way of taking a cluster of a retail cluster and giving it a label so that everybody can benefit from it. That was something that... Can
I give a disclaimer?
Yeah.
The other part of it is probably that the Woodland Art Fair is going on at the same time.
You can't do that. That's not October. That's August.
But it's my perfect day, and I think the Woodland Art Fair is going on at the same time, so I take my coffee and I'm walking around the Woodland Art Fair. All right, keep going. Activate public spaces.
Think about Winchell's. That was originally... So Southland was developed as a post-war starter home community. What's made it so attractive now is that it has that mix of uses to where you have your residences, you can walk to Good Foods Co-op, you can walk to get your hair done, to get your belly full, whatever it is. And that's part of the richness of, I think, why we're sitting here next to the urban service boundary. People are worried about just this expansion of more R1 style single family detached homes, because there isn't going to be that density, the small dwelling units per acre count that we're all trying to shoot for, plus the retail components, that mix that gives it something. Because right now you'd have to drive into Hamburg to go get some food, or to go pick up a SD card or whatever it is. So then you're going to Lansdowne Shops next. What's next? Arboretum. That's a really cool thing. That's our state's botanical gardens. Never going to be developed. UK is a land grant institution, and that's one of the perks that we get is that it is in our city. That's not something that everybody has. To have trails like that, to walk through all the native species of every single region of Kentucky is so unique. And that's a really cool sanctuary that we don't talk about enough, of how we are never going to be able to develop that, no matter how much construction is going on campus or close to Central Baptist. Not going to call it Baptist Health, like you aren't going to call Kroger Field. But that's very cool. And then Lansdowne Shopping Center is really neat at how it's also developed, where it used to be simple. It used to be a Sloan's Market and some shops, and now it's becoming a really premier shopping center. And even cooler with Merrick, where you're going to finish the day, that's only had one owner since it's been built. It is a really cool asset. I think everybody jokes about the Red Mile apartments, where every year there's a new owner. Merrick is one of them that is so desirable because it has, you can go up to the clubhouse, the restaurant, sit on the patio, used to be able to look into a pool and walk home. You had a pretty attainable rent, and it stayed that way because it hasn't had to be bumped up every time there's a new owner that wants to find some sort of value to add. And so you've pointed out some really cool Lexington gems.
Thanks. I tried. Just so you know, football game would have been in that mix, but I wasn't allowed to because of the trifecta thing. What about your perfect Lexington day?
DevelopLex is also sponsored by Community Trust Bank. Hi there, this is Cam Dacey, Commercial Loan Officer at Community Trust Bank and avid DevelopLex and Middle Tech podcast listener. Community Trust offers a wide variety of home loans, commercial loans, and small business loans to suit your financial needs, as well as mobile banking, internet banking, and bill pay. Their friendly and professional staff would love to assist you at one of their 6 Lexington locations. Community Trust Bank is committed to building communities built on trust. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, subject to credit approval.
The perfect place would be to take Town Branch, go into somewhere that, you know, all of the young professionals go to, or all of the people with families with one school go to, or just somewhere that you don't have to have plans to know that you're going to run into people that you like. It's kind of like the club model, where post-20s or 2020 city clubs have become the thing. We have one that's coming into Lexington right across from the Opera House. We've always had one that is over there across from the Kentucky Theater, perpendicular to Main Street. And that's all it is a concept that says there's a lot of people that are craving sense of place. And so whether it's a membership style place, or it's just a normal place that you go and get dinner often enough that it's not breaking the bank and you run into the normal usual suspects there. I think that's what we need. So I hope that comes about in my dream Lexington day soon.
Love it. All right, you've been to a lot of cities. Ross is a gallivanter of nations, some call him. I would love to follow up your statement of saying there's places like the High Line, right, that are just very unique to a city. I'm hoping that Town Branch is something similar to that once it's created, but let's rule that out. Let's say that doesn't exist. What is something that you have experienced in a different city that you would love to bring back to Lexington in terms of just an experience like that?
I think the way that we do tailgating is one thing. That you go to LSU and that entire city shuts down so that everybody can go to a tailgate, and they find their sense of place that way. On a more regular kind of day, Atlanta, they have the Beltline. The Beltline was an old short line rail that was not needed anymore. pretty much functionally obsolete, and they turned it into a walking path. And there have been a really neat mix of retail and restaurant users that now line all of that in old factories, in newly built complexes. And there's a place called Ladybird that it's where all the 20-somethings went and kind of became as like the young adult hangout of Atlanta. Then those same young adults found their husbands and wives and now have kids and are going there for their morning biscuits. And you'll go at 8 a.m. and see a young family sitting there sharing a biscuit, having coffee. And then you wouldn't know it, but 8 hours later, that's the young adult hangout where everybody's sitting there. There's fires going. You can get some light bites, barbecue inside, get cocktails, craft beer, and everybody goes there. That's like the place everybody has their networking event. That's the place everybody has their birthday party. That's the place that it's just everybody always gets together. So that's some neat things I've been able to see.
My one idea, I'm not as versed as Ross. I've been to far west cities, nor do I study them as much as Ross does. My one thing would be the monorail system. Disney has a great monorail system, I've heard. I've never been to Disney.
Rip.
Shout out parents. Just kidding. My parents are great. I love my parents, but we just never went to Disney as a kid. Las Vegas, though, has a great monorail system as well. There's several cities that have a monorail system, but
you mean you like public transportation?
love public transportation. Love public transportation that I don't have to give much thought to, though. When my car was totaled in college, I was a big bus guy there for a while. I had to give a lot of thought to that. Had to give a lot of thought to when the bus was going to be there, where at, blah, blah, blah. Monorail, pretty sweet. It does get a little bit sketchy at night in Las Vegas, but I think we could eliminate that in Lexington.
So would you rather pay a little bit more in taxes, payroll taxes, and have free public transportation for everybody, no fare needed to get on, or have a little bit less, or just maintain the tax rate and pay for a fare?
Feels like a loaded question.
You don't have to answer if you don't want.
No, in theory, I would like everybody to have access to free public transportation. I don't know if that's a practical thing to do and if that would be efficient / safe / access every part of the city that it would need to. You'd have to have systems in place to make sure that people weren't sleeping on, all of the things. That's why I guess New York's subway system isn't I mean, you still have to pay to get on the subway.
But I think that's interesting about New York is that they have the tap to pay, and it's so easy. You don't have to load a card. You don't have to carry exact change. You don't have to. It's so easy. It takes the modern day iPhone and turns it into a bus pass.
In theory, I would love there to be. I think that would solve a lot of issues within the city is to have free access to public transportation. But even if there was a way to reduce rates for certain income levels or something like that, I think as long as we could keep safety, I think that would be pretty sweet.
Interesting. Disney has a lot we can learn from, actually, because similar to how we're talking about university campuses or a cool sandbox and a peek into the future for city planning, Disney was built on orange groves in Florida, and they created a perfect city. Or an attempted perfect city. So I mean,
place on earth.
It means that there's something that's more possible, and heck, people pay crazy money to get into Disney nowadays, and so I just wonder what principles we can take from the Disney Imagineers and make sure that developers, city planners, dreamers, visionaries. Think about that. There's a lot of neat curation of uses, and not just think about inside the parks where it's very walkable and beautiful, but how they have hospitality plus food and beverage, plus entertainment, plus logistics, plus back end storage that you would never know existed, plus they've done a really good job creating that attempted perfect city.
Love it. Making Lexington Disney one day at a time.
We're going to make Lexington a little bit more like heaven.
Love it. All right. I think that's a wrap. If you are listening on Spotify, I would encourage you to give our YouTube channel a look. I would also say subscribe to the newsletter. Ross has recently reformatted the newsletter, and it looks a lot more visually appealing than it used to. We're continuing to make changes to the newsletter, but if you do not subscribe to the newsletter, go check out our beacons on social media. That little link just under our name is what the beacons is. And click on that and then hit subscribe to the newsletter. We'll also put the subscription link to it's free. We give you all of the property sales for the preceding 2 weeks and a lot of really interesting articles, interesting Twitter accounts, and all of the shows. So thanks for listening. We will get back with you in 2 weeks.